Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today was deadlift day. And you know, I haven't really cared with what I'm doing right now about progressing very quick on my volume deadlifts. Just decided I'm going to add a set when I feel like it, which I've been adding a set every week with this weight, building towards my 10. And you guys know my current training system on my big lifts. When I get to 10 sets of 3, I increase the weight. When I can comfortably do 10 sets. That's what I'm doing. And I'm just slowly working towards that. You know what? Today I actually felt good enough that I was going to go ahead and do 8. And when you guys get to that 7th set, you're going to notice it wasn't really hard. I didn't really work that hard on the 7th. The problem, and I'll show it in the video later, is that I started tearing the skin on my hand. One of my calluses started ripping off. I'm like, you know what? If I fully rip this callus off, it might put me out of deadlifting for a week. So I would rather coast and only do 7 sets like I did last week than risk tearing it, even though the strength was there. Now my lower back was getting a little fatigued, but not so much that I couldn't have done another set. But again, things get in the way. And that's the beauty of training like this. Just nice, slow linear progression when you're a more advanced lifter. The beauty of it is that you don't have to increase every time. I could do the same workout. How often does the law of accommodation show? About 3 weeks. We can do this for 3 weeks straight and still make small gains off of it. It's just that with each session in which you replicate it, you'll have more diminished returns. And after about 3, you're going to stagnate. Now, that being said, that's fine. I increased last week. This is my 2nd workout doing the same weight for the same number of sets. That's okay. And actually the thing I'm noticing, I feel really good afterwards. I'm noticing I'm adapting to the higher volume of deadlifting. I historically have not been big on volume deadlifts. You guys know that. I seem to be handling it well, and I wonder if a part of it has to do with the fact that I do enormous amounts of list cardio. Remember I've talked to you guys about the data on that and recovery, of it improving work capacity and recovery. Doing the volumes of deadlifts I do in a workout, even back in the day when I was on, you know, respectable, it's a funny word to use, respectable amounts of gear, I wouldn't have tried to deadlift this volume, even with the extra recovery agents. But now here I am, in my early 40s, not blasting gear. And quite frankly, the volume deadlifting, I'm recovering from it well. I'm actually getting used to it. And I can't help but wonder if it's kind of the combination of the fact that I only train 4 days a week on the system I'm doing, if it gives a good balance of recovery combined with all the cardio. I feel like it's a big factor here. I feel like it's a really big factor because after having done this, I'm not even sore. When I first started doing the volume with the deficits, I was getting sore. After my first workout going back normal conventional without the deficit, even that 6 sets, I was like, man, that was kind of tough. I'm kind of sore. At least doing volume with a decent amount of percentage of my weight. Doing volume with 405, no big deal. But, you know, start going up a bit. Yeah, I was kind of shattered. I was crushed. Right now, I have no soreness other than in my callus. In my hand. It's the only place. So that's interesting. It really is interesting, and I think it does go to show that some of these guys out there like Alex Viada, Greg Knuckles, other people who've talked about this, it really shows that there's definitely something to this, that people who adapt to doing large amounts of cardio, large amounts of conditioning work, particularly the lower intensity stuff, absolutely seems to speed up recovery and help with work capacity. And to the point to where in terms of recovery, it's almost as good as blasting gear. Now, is it 100% on the recovery? No. But it's not far off. If I really had to assess it, it's not far off the mark. It is noticeable. It's absolutely noticeable. I just recover better. And I didn't expect that to happen getting up into my 40s. I mean, for me, I'm venturing into new territory here. Oh, side note, we'll jump over to this accessory work before we flip back and repeat to some of the deadlifting. Hamstrings. I decided not to do my bicep curls today on deadlift day. I'll do them probably on my squat day. later this week. Make sure I get them in on my squat day. Deadlift day, no, I just didn't feel like doing them. I felt instead that for accessory today I would do some hamstring curls. Now, some people would be like, why? Injury prevention. I'm beginning to get more into the mindset of the more I've observed in my life and decades in watching athletes and lifters over the years, I'm becoming more and more convinced that isolation work doesn't really even build that much muscle in the target muscles unless you're blasted a lot of drugs. It really doesn't. But isolating certain muscles certainly does help with injury prevention, doesn't it? How about hamstring tears? Doing a few hamstring curls every now and then just because of, again, the 3 heads of the hamstring. 3 heads of the hamstring, right? Only 2 of them get effectively, completely worked on the deadlift. It does leave you at risk of injuries. And it just feels like people who do a few standing hamstring curls like this, where you get a nice stretch at the bottom where it's hard there, or who do a few glute ham raises, it really does seem to go a long way to preventing injuries. It does seem to reduce the chance of hamstring tears and pulls, and that is a real concern. I mean, I've torn hamstrings. Deadlifting, I would say I've had 3 pretty serious hamstring pulls over the course of my life while deadlifting heavy. I would say 3. In fact, I know it's 3. I had to count through them to remember each incident. They didn't take me out of training, at least not significantly long times, but it is a real concern. It's a real concern, and it's a real problem. And it's a problem that can be reduced with something as simple as doing a little bit of extra hamstring work just to make sure you've got well-rounded development. Because do any of these hamstring exercises really build your hamstrings up as much as deadlifting for volume does? No. And I'm sorry, anyone who says that they do hasn't done very much volume deadlifting, or they would know better. No, deadlifts will build your hamstrings, but they don't build all the heads proportionately. Overall size, you bet, but it feels like it can leave some weak links there, and it can leave you potentially vulnerable to hamstring injuries and pulls, which we don't want. Hamstring pulls could take you out of deadlifting for 2 or 3 weeks. That's not what we want to have happen. So a little bit of preventative maintenance. That took what? Doing 2 sets. 2 sets of hamstring curls every other deadlift workout, maybe 3 sets. I've done up to 3. Takes less than 5 minutes at the end of a workout. For a little bit of injury prevention, I don't think that's a big deal. That's not a high price to pay. Same thing when I talk about doing some bicep curls. You really think bicep curls are going to make your arms bigger than doing a bunch of chin-ups? If you honestly think that, you have read too many bodybuilding magazines. But you know what? A few curls, especially done full range of motion, where you stretch at the bottom, again, can dramatically reduce your chance of tearing a bicep. So I think honestly the way most of us really need to look more at isolation work is not so much, oh, this is going to make this body part really big. No, your compounds. Compound exercises are what make you big. Anyone telling you otherwise is a bullshit artist. Your big compound movements are what make you big. But I think isolation work really has its place, more so, I think, for injury prevention than anything else. Just for making sure that some other heads of the muscle get developed, that you get nice balance development in any given muscle to make sure all the heads are kind of sorted out and you don't develop weak links in the muscle. And again, this comes down to just injury prevention. Injury prevention. And I think that's where these things are valuable. I think that's where they shine. But there I go, doing all those deadlifts. And I'm just surprised. I'm not tired after doing those. I'm not sore. I feel good. So we're coming back to the other stuff. Recovery. And I think that's the name of the game at the end of the day. And that's really the direction I'm going with my own training. The direction I've been going with more of my own outreach, particularly as I'm getting older. And not just getting older, but getting older and saying, you know what? I'm not done. I don't want to stay where I'm at. I don't want to hold on to 90% of what I have. I want to do better. I want to be better. I want to be better than I am right now, a few years from now. When you develop that mentality taking things like recovery, anything you can do to enhance recovery, anything that you can do to prevent injuries, those things are invaluable. Those are probably some of the most valuable tools you will ever find. That's where your focus really needs to be if you want to continue to get bigger and stronger in your middle age. I think that's really the key, and that's where our focus needs to lay, because we'll always get bigger and stronger as long as we can keep increasing the workload without getting hurt and still recovering from it. All we have to do is put in extra work. Problem solved. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.